The 2025 season began with the Vikings facing a brutal reality. The offensive line was being devastated by injuries. Donovan Jackson underwent wrist surgery and was placed on injured reserve. Brian O'Neill limped out of the game in Dublin against the Steelers with a sprained MCL, a diagnosis confirmed by MRI indicating he would be out for weeks. Ryan Kelly suffered a concussion in the same game and remains in protocol. Within days, Kevin O'Connell saw 3 offensive line starters unavailable simultaneously, forcing a complete reorganization of the protection scheme. The team needed depth immediately and found the solution in someone who knows the area well, a 6'8", 305-pound tackle from Cold Spring, Minnesota, who had just been released by the Cowboys in August. His name is Matt Waletzko. The move happened while the team was on English soil, preparing to face the Browns in London in Week 5. Waletzko boarded a direct flight on Monday, September 30th, crossed the Atlantic, and signed with the Vikings practice squad at the franchise headquarters in Ware, Hertfordshire. The urgency was evident. Minnesota could not risk another injury without at least one additional body available to activate the following Sunday at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Stay tuned, because soon we will show exactly why Waletzko represents more than just an extra name on the practice roster. There are deep connections between him and the Vikings technical staff that make this signing strategic. The timing of the signing was no coincidence. O'Connell made it clear in the post-game press conference in Dublin that he needed to add linemen for practice during the week, especially with O'Neill and Kelly out. The franchise had no margin to wait for a return to the United States. Walter Rouse, another tackle on the roster, was inactive in the game against Pittsburgh, highlighting the lack of reliable options in case of another setback. With 3 backups covering 5 offensive line positions against the Steelers, the collapse was inevitable. 6 sacks allowed, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions on deflected passes. Carson Wentz spent the entire afternoon scrambling to survive. To make room on the practice squad, the Vikings released wide receiver Tim Jones, who had moved between the active roster and the practice squad throughout September. Jones recorded 6 offensive snaps and 25 on special teams during the season, serving as a key contributor in the special teams units. The decision to release a special teams specialist in favor of an offensive tackle highlights the severity of the situation on the offensive line. Minnesota could not afford to carry depth at other positions, while Wentz's protection was collapsing play after play. Waletzko was selected by the Cowboys in the 5th round of the 2022 draft, pick number 155, acquired in the trade that sent Amari Cooper to Cleveland. He arrived in Dallas with impressive physical metrics, combined with the pedigree of having been first-team All-Missouri Valley Football Conference at the University of North Dakota in 2021. At that year's Combine, he posted numbers that drew attention. A solid 40-yard dash for his size, agile short shuttle, and arm span reaching 33 inches. His RAS score of 9.96 reflected an elite athlete within the standards of the position. However, Waletzko's professional trajectory was repeatedly interrupted by problems in his left shoulder. During the second practice of the 2022 training camp, he suffered a shoulder subluxation, reopening a previous injury from his college years. The condition eventually required surgery, keeping him off the field for a significant period. He returned to play in the 3rd week of preseason against the Seahawks, but mostly participated in special teams during the first 3 weeks of the regular season. His only offensive snap came on a play that helped Ezekiel Elliott score a 1-yard touchdown against the Giants. Soon, we will detail how these recurring injuries shaped not only Waletzko's career but also the realistic expectations Minnesota has when integrating him into the system. In the 7th week of that rookie season, while practicing for the next game, Waletzko suffered another subluxation in the same left shoulder. He was placed on injured reserve on October 22, 2022, prematurely ending his rookie year. The 2023 and 2024 seasons followed a similar pattern. Limited appearances, always under the shadow of physical complications that never allowed consistent development. In total, he appeared in 11 regular season games over 3 years in Dallas, recording 20 offensive snaps at tackle and 38 on special teams. His last appearance was on January 5, 2025, in the Cowboys' Week 17 loss. Dallas released him on August 2, 2025, a decision that officially ended his tenure in Texas. Waletzko remained without a team for almost 2 months until receiving the call from the Vikings. At 25 years old, born on December 15, 1999, he now has a second chance to prove he can be more than a physical project that never materialized. The central question is whether his shoulder is finally stable enough to withstand the physical demands required in the NFL, or if Minnesota is simply buying temporary depth until the starters return. The geographic connection adds interesting layers. Waletzko is a native of Cold Spring, the same town that produced Eric Decker, a former wide receiver who shined for the Minnesota Gophers before having a solid NFL career. He played high school football at Rocori before moving on to North Dakota, where he earned second-team All-MVFC honors in 2020 and first-team in 2021-2021. This local tie resonates with the fan base, which always values when the franchise gives opportunities to Minnesota products. But there is another factor that makes this signing even more intriguing from a technical standpoint, and it is directly related to the Vikings coaching staff. Keep watching to understand this connection. There is a crucial technical element in this signing. Chris Cooper, the Vikings offensive line coach, is also a North Dakota alumnus. Cooper was selected by the Broncos in the 5th round of 2006, pick 161, and had a productive career in Denver before moving into coaching. The college connection between Cooper and Waletzko is not mere biographical coincidence. It signifies familiarity with North Dakota's development system, understanding of the techniques taught there, and potentially a more direct communication channel during the integration process into Minnesota's playbook. Waletzko was the first UND draft pick since Cooper was selected in 2006, excluding Kenny Golladay, who transferred to Northern Illinois after 2 seasons in Grand Forks. This rarity makes the relationship even more significant. Cooper closely followed Waletzko's development since college, knows his limitations and strengths, and likely had a significant voice in the decision to bring him onto the practice squad. Waletzko's 6'8" height is simultaneously an asset and a liability. Tackles of this size have a natural advantage in reach, able to engage defenders before they penetrate the line of scrimmage. However, maintaining a low pad level becomes a constant challenge. Lance Zierlein's draft profile pointed this out exactly. Pad level issues and average foot quickness are limitations that could be difficult to work around. The tendency to lean during pass protection reflects concerns with core strength, a problem that power rushers exploit relentlessly. And there is more. We will show how these physical traits fit or do not fit into the scheme Kevin O'Connell runs, and what this means for a potential promotion to the active roster. The scouting report also highlighted that Waletzko possesses tremendous length and upper body power, traits teams want to cultivate. Technical execution in run blocking should improve with experience and coaching. But the reality is that he simply has not had enough reps to develop timing with quarterbacks and guards over the past 3 years. The leaning habit in pass protection, mentioned as a reflection of core strength concerns, remains a red flag until proven otherwise in field work. Minnesota faces a delicate situation, with O'Neal likely out for multiple weeks due to the sprained MCL, Jackson on IR at least until after the Week 6 bye, and Kelly still in concussion protocol. The starting line will not be complete anytime soon. Blake Brandel stepped in for Jackson and had solid but limited performance. Michael Juergens filled in for Kelly at center. Both are competent backups, but represent a step back from the starters. Adding Waletzko to the practice squad provides an insurance case in case of another injury during the game against Cleveland. The game in London against the Browns presents specific challenges. Myles Garrett leads one of the most aggressive pass rushes in the league, capable of destroying entire game plans when protection fails. Minnesota needs to keep Carson Wentz standing if they want a chance to win. O'Connell mentioned that he could elevate someone from the practice squad to the active roster on Sunday, and Waletzko is a natural candidate if the medical staff decides to rest any of the current tackles or if there is a last-minute setback. Stay tuned, because soon we will reveal how O'Connell's strategy to face Garrett could directly influence whether Waletzko is promoted to the game day roster. The game against Cleveland marks the Vikings' return to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the same venue where they defeated the Jets last season. Familiarity with the venue could be an advantage, but the context has changed drastically. On that occasion, the offensive line was healthy. Now, Minnesota arrives patched together, relying on backups in multiple positions. Kevin Stefanski announced a change at starting quarterback. Rookie Dylan Gabriel takes command of Cleveland's offense. Brian Flores will have to prepare the defense for a different type of playmaker. But if Myles Garrett decides to dominate the game, no defensive adjustment will save Minnesota if protection continues collapsing like in Dublin. Keep watching, because we will reveal what happens after the bye week and how it impacts Waletzko's future on the roster. The last time Waletzko saw significant action was in January 2025, Week 17. Since then, he has gone 8 months without playing. Integrating into the Vikings playbook with less than a week of preparation is a monumental challenge. The fact that he was released in August by the Cowboys carries meaning. Dallas chose not to keep him even knowing he was young and athletically gifted. Minnesota is betting that a change of scenery and coaching can extract something Dallas could not. Chris Cooper will play a fundamental role, knowing intimately where Waletzko needs to improve, maintaining consistent pad level, developing an anchor against bull rushes, and refining footwork in pass sets. Minnesota faces the Browns on Sunday at 8:30 in the morning Central Time. After this game, the franchise enters the Week 6 bye, providing 2 full weeks of recovery before facing the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 7. This interval is crucial. Donovan Jackson could be available after the bye. Brian O'Neill, listed as week-to-week, would have additional time. Ryan Kelly needs to go through the full concussion protocol. If all return healthy, Waletzko's necessity drops drastically. However, if any starter suffers a setback, Waletzko could find a real opportunity. Walter Rouse was inactive against Pittsburgh, indicating that the coaching staff does not trust him as an immediate option. This places Waletzko in an interesting position to climb the depth chart, and it does not stop there. Soon, we will close by showing how this signing reflects Minnesota's larger strategy for the rest of the season. The decision to sign Waletzko while the team was in England demonstrates Kevin O'Connell's pragmatism. He identified an urgent need and put him on a transatlantic flight the same day. This type of proactive move is characteristic of front offices that understand opportunity windows close quickly. Bringing a Minnesota native onto the roster creates a positive narrative for the fan base during a difficult moment. After a painful loss in Dublin and with injuries mounting, the organization needed to maintain engagement. Waletzko represents hope, even if modest.